Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everyone. Every second Wednesday, we get to chat with authors from our friends at Books Forward. They are an amazing literary PR company. And I said literary quite well, didn't I? I did it because it's hard. It's a hard word. You never know. But excited to have Janine Kovac joining us. She is a ballet dancer and she's written a memoir. It's called The Nutcracker Chronicles. It is out now. It's a day old, everyone. So go get the new baby. Go to JanineKovac.com. So welcome, Janine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing good. I've been starting your memoir, and you gave me the giggles. Like it's just, the very first instructors, and just the scene of what it's like to be in a live performance. What happens, what the audience doesn't see. And I know a little bit of that side from being in music, a musician, and things like that, and doing a little bit of dance, but not like what you did. You did like the real career. And what I didn't know was that you guys smoked a lot. Like, come on, what was that? I was always getting
We did.
smacked around, like not really smacked around, but yelled at for smoking too, because I was a singer and you're not supposed to do that. But it calmed my nerves and it
No,
gave
it
me a
was
good blues voice.
it's very much of the culture at the time, smoking. And I think part of it was there are a bunch of reasons. One, it calms your nerves. Two, there's a lot of diet consciousness, and so there's an idea that smoking helps with that in some ways. So I'm not sure, I don't know. But I think there's also, there's so much of this like goody two shoes kind of persona with your ballet shoes and your little pink tights and your bun head and everything being kind of perfect. I thought of it as also a way, not necessarily me, but I think the culture is part of that is feeling like this is how we're a little bit gritty or a little bit, not so sweet, or we smoke, we have leather jackets and things like that. But yeah, there was a lot of smoking.
Well, it's kind of like models. The modeling career, models wouldn't eat, but they would smoke and drink champagne.
Right.
Sounds
Right.
like fun to me.
Yeah.
Except for I need my cheese, when cheese and chocolate, if we can just add those two things in, I'm okay.
Yeah,
You
those are
know.
the four food groups.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
Yeah.
But eventually you can't taste anything if you smoke too much.
That's right.
So
That's right. So you can't taste your cheese or your chocolate.
yeah, but I think it's a balance though, in a way. It's like not necessarily rebelling on it. It's kind of like you can't be all one thing all the time,
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah. And then
You
of course
know.
the culture at that time, you could still smoke on airplanes.
Oh
Restaurants had a
God, that's
smoking
right.
section. Yeah, so
Yeah.
smoking was everywhere anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah, it really
definitely
was.
didn't
And
count.
it was still part of that mode of being naughty and sexy at the same
Right,
time.
exactly. And
Yeah.
now it's just like unhealthy and smelly.
Yeah. So this is, yeah, I mean, I remember, I was young when we came back to this country. It was like, what, I think 19, and we flew from South Africa to England, and we were in a smoking section on the plane, which I thought was cool because then we were seeing family, and I thought they're gonna bust me, I can't be smoking. And my mom's like, "Don't you dare." Well, I'll never do that again. That was horrible. That's when
Oh,
it kind of made me really think you need to quit, is that flight of being like in this vacuum of smoke, you know?
yeah.
So
For
that kind of helped
hours,
me.
right?
Yeah,
8 hours,
yeah. And then
five
as soon
hours.
as I went into the band, then I started smoking again. See, it's true. See, it's like
Yeah.
it's that like, all right, we're done, and then there's gossip, right? Now
Yeah.
that's
Right.
part
Yeah.
of it.
There's
So
yeah,
this
there's a social aspect to it, the people who, are going to hang together and kind of smoke and talk. Or do you have a light? It's a way to start a conversation,
Yeah.
do you have
Or
a
if you liked
cigarette?
somebody, that was another way too.
Mm-hmm.
If you had like the hots for, the bass player, it was like, suddenly I'm smoking again.
Right. And then you just kind of stand next to them.
Mm,
And yeah, it was a whole there was a whole social networking around cigarettes and
that's so
smoking
funny.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
conversation and togetherness.
Well, it seemed to me that from your childhood that you have like a when you realize like this is something that really attracted you to do the ballet, not the smoking. We're done with that now. But the actual ballet. Let's go to the twinkly side. There's this magical, and I love that you're like the Nutcracker Suite. I love that piece of music. I love, you know, I still listen to it, especially when we drive through forests. And now it's going over and over in my head. Yeah, because if you're driving through the mountains and it's snowy and there's that beautiful, that idyllic, winter forest scene, you must play the Nutcracker Suite.
I
Um,
love that.
it's true. And now it's
Love.
going to play in my head all day long. Thank you. It's all right.
Well,
We
it's
also
the
use it.
season for it. It's the
Yes,
season
and
for it.
when people watch football, like we have no clue about sports, none. So if it's on TV, we turn the TV sound down and we put the Nutcracker Suite on, especially for football. So
I
that is a
love
thing.
that.
That
Everyone
is a
should do
thing.
that.
Yes. But I think the Nutcracker Suite has this magical thing to it. That's what I was saying, like that magical winter forest scene. And as a little girl, like that's that, ooh, wow, like we can believe in magic. And is that something that, even as getting into the adult stages of life, kind of wanted to hold on to magic being
Mm.
real and possible.
Right, right, absolutely. There's so much about ballet that is that you see in movies and things like that, that it's hard and your feet bleed and your tendons rupture and your muscles are sore and sometimes people aren't nice to you and things like that, and you're smoking and all this. Um, but what doesn't really transcend in from the experience of it to what you see in movies and TV is the feeling of stepping on stage and the magic. And it's not really the applause or the lights or whatever, although the lights do create this atmosphere because you can't really see the audience and you feel this warmth. And so you step into magic, and hopefully the
Mm.
book kind of gives the reader that idea of what the experience is like. But every performance, whether you're doing something really silly like carrying a lollipop across the stage, and there are some
Mhm.
of those lollipop carriers in Nutcrackers, or you're doing a really prominent role, you can still be part of that. And the music, as you mentioned, the music is amazing. I think that's why we have so many Nutcrackers every year. Every ballet company, every ballet studio has some kind of version of the Nutcracker because that music is just so transcendent, and it tells a story, and there's drama, there's joy, there's twinkling.
Mm.
And so the magic starts with the music, and then your heart reacts to that, and then that's dance.
And there's the sugar plum fairies.
And the sugar plum fairies.
Yeah, everybody wants the sugar plum fairies, you know?
Right, right.
There's something about that. But yeah, the magic part, and it's also everybody knows about, having to be, like a model, right? It's kind of similar with that. And diet and, having to be a certain weight and all of that and the posture and
Right.
all of that going into it. But to me, it like dance and not just ballet is about being you're not grounded. I can't explain. You're like light. You're floating. You're like a feather,
Mm.
like a bird. There's a elegance to it, and even if it's any kind of if you're doing like a hip hop dance or something, you're still in this other. It's a different world, actually. I think it is. Like I know that as a singer, like if suddenly as soon if you snap in out of what that zone is, you're done.
Right, right,
You're done.
right.
You've lost it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
otherwise, you could be in this complete different world and you're just oblivious to anything other than being in that like flow. It's the
absolutely.
flow.
Right, right. And it's
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 the
like
flow.
being in one place and being everywhere at the same time. And there
Yeah.
is a physical groundedness because that's your center. That's where your technique
Yeah.
comes from. So if you don't have that groundedness, like physically, you're not going to be able to execute the steps that you need to execute. But emotionally, it's like the way light is a beam and a particle. That's what you feel. That's
Mm.
that's the dance part. And it's not just, certainly isn't just ballet. It's any kind of dance or any kind of intersection between focus and focused movement. And I think that's also where the grace comes in too, because there's an intentionality to how you're moving and when you're moving. And then again, you have the music to kind of carry you if your mind is going to go someplace else.
Mm. Yeah, you have to be present in the
Absolutely.
total
Right.
present. Eckhart Tolle would be very happy with this conversation. Be in the present. I
Right,
could do
right.
his voice, but then that would not be good. But but the thing too with this is like there's also the like if I go in the band mode, the
Mm,
band has to be in the zone together. And if
right,
someone does something wrong, you work together to fix, right?
right,
Because as we all know, anything live,
right.
anything can go wrong. I mean, and just when you think you don't, you've done it all, you'll discover you're wrong. It's
Yeah,
like
absolutely. Right, right.
so
And
that scene with the people, the dancers, the troupe, right?
yeah, yeah. The quarter ballet, I was in a company in Italy and we performed together and we had the same, hotel room. So we were together all the time. We had all our meals together. We traveled together. We're dancing together. We're rehearsing together. And by the end of the tour, we were so sick of each other. That's just what happens. And we had this performance it wasn't the Nutcracker. It was very complicated atonal music. So much so that it felt like it didn't make sense. And it was very difficult for the musicians to play. And there was a certain note, there was a cue that we were all supposed to react on. And the musician didn't play his
Oh,
cue, he didn't play his note. And the musicians didn't take this music very seriously because it didn't sound like anything to them anyways, but that's a whole other issue. So we're on stage, we're waiting for our cue. There's 6 of us, and we have to make a decision. Like, do we do the step that was supposed to be on the music, even though that music didn't happen, or do we go to the next thing? And we made the same choice at this, and we're looking at out of the corners of our eyes, which is just your peripheral vision, but we're also just
mhm.
sensing what everyone's doing, which is what
Yeah.
directors say all the time. It's a quarter for the quarter ballet. You just have to dance as one. It sounds so stupid. And we're like, oh, that's so stupid. But now we're on stage and we have to dance as one. We absolutely cannot make a mistake. And it was like we all connected on another level and we just did the next step. We all did the
Isn't
same
that
thing at the
wild?
same time. It was amazing. It was so amazing that the director was like, he wasn't quite sure what happened. He thought that maybe there
Yeah.
was the
By
musician
that
didn't
time, it
think
already has to happen.
it already happened, right? And he also thought maybe he just like nodded off and it's still, which is okay. But anyway, we were so in sync that he didn't know that anything had happened. It was like he figured the mistake must have been his.
Wow.
But
But
that's what
that's the thing.
happens.
But that's where this is where I talk about this otherworldly force or
Right.
energy. Maybe that would be that happens that you can't even. I mean, you had to put it all in words in a memoir, man. How do you do that? I mean, what is that? It's like I was wondering about that because you're writing, you've got a good dynamic and it's
Thank you.
fun. You're just the way your alliteration. Ooh, I can say this early in the morning. It was going well. I'm reading this. I'm going. You understand dynamics, and I wonder if that's coming from your dance background that you're able to use that in your writing, where the dynamics of let this part flow, and then now we got to bunch it up a little bit. Did you work on it
Yeah,
that way, thinking, from your dance background?
absolutely. In fact, I often do that in my writing, even when I'm not writing about
And this is
dance.
not her first book, everyone.
Right, right, right. Yeah. But I often do that when I'm struggling with a revision or trying to make a story come to life. Um, I'm I look at it like a stage, and I'm thinking,
Mm,
okay, so what's on stage? What are my props? What's the scenery? Is somebody entering or people already on stage? Because that's what you can do in a memoir that you can't do in a ballet. If you're choreographing, people have to come
mhm,
onto the stage and they have to leave, and you can't just cut to another scene the way you can in a movie.
mhm,
So in a book, I had to think, okay, so there are some aspects where I can cut to a middle of a scene the way you would visualize something in a movie. And then there's something happening, something dynamic happening in this scene. What am I trying to say? Who's saying it? who's here. And I would
Mm-hmm.
look at flow dynamic where something started to get kind of static, and think of it as, if I could picture this as a ballet step or a bunch of steps, what would it look like? Because that I can fix. And I can say, oh,
Okay.
that tombe pas de bourrée needs a glissade. But with the words, I'm like, oh, just So I definitely did that translation when I got stuck on crafting a scene.
Now, okay, you just said words I can't pronounce. There's no way. So you had to learn all that, but it goes from, whatever you just said, the
The
glisse.
tombe pas de bourrée glissade.
Oh, good, good, good. Well
That
done.
one.
But then there's boob in the soup. What's that about? Like,
Okay,
come on.
so a little bit of context. My director in El Paso was a German woman. She grew up and fled during World War II. She fled Germany during World War II, so that wasn't fun for her. But she had
No.
this full career as a ballet dancer as a young student, and she was very interesting. Very just all the stereotypes of the director who is mean and has these insults, but also has these moments of tenderness. And what was very strange, maybe it wasn't strange, but she was always trying to talk about us and our bodies as women,
Oh,
and
good.
how you might flirt and how you might be in your body, which is not anything you usually learn in ballet. Usually you learn that your sexuality or sensuality is separate from your body parts. Like that's not what you
Right.
can do with dance. You're just like a androgynous in that way. And she was not like that. She was very
Hmm.
much wanting us to read Lady Chatterley's Lover, which I still have not read, but I assume is very erotic the way she described it. But one of the things she would say is she would say boobs in the soup. And it was a way to tell us to angle our bodies as if we were putting our chests in some kind of like soup over the stove or something. But it's
This now you makes you think that she do that at some point.
right.
She was like,
She was making some chicken noodles. She was like, oh, this is a good epaulement. I'm going to tell
that's
people about this.
this
This will fix my students.
yeah, that's funny. I mean, really. But I mean, it does give you the visual of what you need.
It does, except we're 12, we're prepubescent, we don't want to think about boobs at all.
And you're not
And
supposed to have them,
we're
are
not supposed
you?
to have them. We certainly don't want to put them in a soup. It was just really shocking. So, and it just made her to us be this really weird person. And like anyone who talks about sex or flirting or that kind of stuff when you're a
Yeah, you
kid,
were like in that
it's
different,
like
and don't forget, in Germany and in Europe, there are so many, they're way open compared to,
right,
conservative America, and I'm
right, right.
not that, not as a political group, but as a, you know,
Right.
well, that,
Prudish, right?
oh, well done. Well done. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. She's the writer. so, but that's I got the giggles with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, here's all these fancy terms, and then here it is. But I think as a young kid, I mean, that's going to be something that sticks with you, and obviously did.
Absolutely. Yes, it did. It really did.
Wow. Wow. So going, this is the thing too, when we're young and you have kids too, when we're young, we get all these interests, which I think, as adults, we need to remember those interests and follow them, but we start editing our lives,
Right.
or no, we can't do this because of this, which half the time it's just an excuse, right?
Right.
And
Right.
because
Right.
now the fear comes into our lives because we
Mhm.
see things. And, as a kid, here you are with ballet, but a lot of times these things are exploratory. And, and then does it actually go anywhere into through teenage years and into the actual serious study of it and application of it into adulthood? But you went for it and
I
traveled
did.
the world.
I
And
did.
so, that had to be pretty cool. Now, what was a moment for you as an adult, like one of the first, performances overseas that kind of made you like, maybe, I don't know whether you'd pinch yourself or not, but go, holy cow, I'm like doing this, like for reals. like, supporting myself with this. I'm actually
Right,
doing this, you know?
right. That would have been when I was in Iceland, dancing with the National Ballet of Iceland, Islands Dansflokkurin, and
This is
we
such
had
a fun conversation with all these words and terms.
and we had a tour in Germany, and the tour was like in late May, which means that if you're in Reykjavik in late May, there's no nighttime anymore. It's just like broad
Oh, wow.
daylight. It's not even like if you go to north to Scotland or Maine or something like that, then you have a much later day, or Canada, but this is like no dusk, no nighttime. It's just bright blue sky 24/7. And this is May. This like the summer solstice isn't until mid-June. So that's how much just
Wow.
straight daylight you have. And then we go to on tour, we go to Germany, and we have a few performances in Germany. And it was so normal. It felt so normal. Like, oh, we're going to have dinner at the Icelandic consulate in Bonn, because at that time they were still kind of figuring out where the capital. There's just still a lot of capital energy in Bonn versus Berlin, because the wall had just
Hmm.
come down. So this is early 90s. So we had dinner at the Icelandic consulate, and there's the bus that takes you to the hotel, and a lot of busyness, and it was just so normal that it was like, oh, right, this is my normal, this is my normal. And it was contrasted with suddenly there's nighttime again after not having night for,
Okay.
like a
Yeah.
week or so. And I think that would have been one of the moments that I felt like, okay, this is my job. And then the other moment would have
Wow.
been when I was a student. I was still a student, and I was a senior in high school, which as a ballet dancer meant that I went to a school that was mostly for drug addicts and unwed mothers, so that they could finish their schooling. And once a week, we would come in and we'd pick up our little packets, and we would fill out our packets, and then we'd return the next week and turn in our schoolwork. And the company I was dancing with went to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., and there's a big book at the stage entrance, at the
Wow.
artist entrance, and all the artists who perform at the Kennedy Center get to sign this book.
Oh, that's pretty epic.
So
Yeah.
that didn't have anything to do with being on stage or dancing something or having a role. It was just like, oh, this is what artists get to sign when they come here, and I get to sign this.
That's cool. And I think and following through, I mean, because it's not like there's just so much work that goes into this. And that's what I was saying. You just kept going, and so there's a resiliency, I think, for dancers, that you have to have this resiliency to persevere
Right, right.
through it,
Yeah.
you know.
And the other thing that's so much harder as a dancer than as a writer is how you separate yourself from your art, because it isn't personal. There's so many auditions, whether it's for a company or for a role, and there's always this feeling of competition, but you're also so close. There's a feeling of we're all in this together.
Family, yeah.
Family. Yeah.
Hmm.
And you have to separate, you have to understand that every girl wants to dance Juliet. Of course she does. But there really are only two people who are right for that role. So she's not going to be taller than Lady
Okay.
Capulet, and she's going to look youthful. Just all these things that happen with casting, for example. And so you have to understand that if you don't get this role or you don't get this company contract, it isn't personal. But it feels so personal because it is your body, right? If you could be 5'2" instead of 5'8" because you really want to be Julia, you would do that, but you can't
Yeah.
because it's your body. And that's, I think that's one of the hardest things to come to terms with, that your dancing is 100% you, and you are the only person who can dance this way and the only person who can be beautiful in this way, because we all have our own unique beauty when
Yeah.
we move and when we express ourselves. And if somebody says, I don't like that kind of beauty, it's not personal. That's
Oh,
the hardest
that's
thing.
a really good, I'm glad we talked about this because I think the arts, you're always wearing your heart on your sleeve, you know? You're putting yourself out there and I've talked about this with authors too, where there's going to be some reviewer, you know,
It
who's just,
doesn't get it.
and business owners, but small businesses that, just put their heart and soul, every penny to scrape by, in small businesses, just not that easy anymore.
Right.
I
Right.
don't think it has ever been, right? And, someone is just gonna be a jerk
Yeah.
for a second and not even like editing themselves and just going, okay, let me maybe have a conversation. Now, sometimes if someone's really not gonna work with you on something, well, that's not nice. But the there's this negative stuff that goes out there. So when you're putting yourself out there and someone doesn't like it, it's kind of like, but it's true. I think you put it in such a valuable lesson for everybody,
Right. Right.
because we can't be according to what everybody wants us to be.
Right.
In
Yeah.
fact, it's my favorite breakup line. I'm sorry, I can't be what you want me to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually a very true thing. It's like
Yeah.
it either matches or it doesn't.
Right. Right. And somehow we have this idea that we have to be everything for everyone, and that's just not true. There are people who don't like the Nutcracker. I actually don't, not that I don't like the Nutcracker, but I don't go see the Nutcracker unless I know someone that I love who's in it. I'll go see different ballets because that's what I feel stimulated by. As much
Yeah.
as I'll listen to the music, I listen to the music a lot. But there is no one size fits all. And this idea that we have to do that means we compromise something because I'm imagining what you want to hear or see. So I'm going to compromise that to match that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's a really confusing message also, because if you're a dancer or you're a singer, you are dancing someone else's steps or singing someone else's music. So you are doing
But you
something
still have to
else,
have your
right?
own style, right? Because that
Absolutely.
is integrity to art.
Right,
Whether you're
right.
writing, a painting,
Yeah,
all the greats I know hold on to who they are. They've
yeah,
done, you mimic in the beginning, right? We all
right.
do that as a singer. I mean, I can copy just about anybody at this point. It's kind of crazy. It's, not, I shouldn't say everything, not all the heavy metal stuff, but I can do a lot of different voices because that's how
Right.
I learned how to enunciate and how to
Yeah,
do
right,
timing and dynamics and everything.
right.
And then you find, wait, this is my voice. I don't want to do it
Right.
the way she does it. I
Yes,
want to do it
yes,
this way. And
right.
then you do it,
And it's
you
the
know?
only thing you have control over, the only thing you have control over, and the only thing that nobody else can do. They can't do
And
it
that's the
for you.
risk.
They can't do it. Even if they could try to copy you, but it's still going to be a copy. You're the
Oh, and
only
it's
real
boring.
deal.
Mimicking is fun for comedy purposes. It's great. But
Yeah,
beyond that, like, no, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And so, but I think this is a recipe for life. Is about
absolutely.
finding your authentic voice of no matter what you do, because that's going to set you apart.
Right,
And
right,
when we talk about resumes and everything, I feel like that's how it should be. Who are you as a person? Not just here's
right,
the list of things. Who are you
right.
as a dancer? Who are you as a writer? You know,
And
everyone's got their style. I like your writing,
yeah.
man. I'm like, well, she's fun.
Well,
you
and then
know?
the other thing happens with the authentic voice part of it, when you're honing that, you have lessons that um that keep giving, right? Whereas if I'm going to try to compromise and be what you want me to be, and then I go here and now I have to do what you want me to be,
Uh,
I can't take anything
it's
with me.
miserable.
Right.
It's miserable.
But if I'm always learning how to hone my authentic voice and what I like about how this works or how this doesn't work, or what I don't like and how I could change that, then whatever growth I'm experiencing, those are never lessons lost. That's
Mm,
just the gift that keeps giving. And it also gets
mm.
easier, like, oh, this worked, and and then you find the people who really want to hear that message or read what you've written
Yeah.
or hear how you sing, and those are your people. You don't
Yeah.
want to talk to the
And then it's
people who, yeah,
flow instead of banging your head against the wall.
right, right,
Because you could bang your head against the wall trying to copy someone else or do your own thing,
Yeah.
stumble, fall, learn from it, and find the flow, right?
Yeah.
We're back
Yeah.
to the flow and the energy. We
Absolutely.
want that
Yeah.
magic. Well, writing this, is that part of what you wanted to do? Is to share with people the life of, because I think you put this different energy into it. I mean, I know there's a lot of work that goes into ballet, but like I was saying, a little bit more fun, a little bit more, but there's some lessons, for
Mhm.
people. So is that part of why you wanted to write this as a memoir?
Oh, that's a good question. This had to be a memoir because there were just so many great Nutcracker stories between my husband's stories, because my husband is
Mhm,
also a ballet
mhm,
dancer. We met as ballet dancers. And then my daughter, who is 17 and still dancing, my sons who danced very, very briefly. There were just so many good stories about what happens on stage and backstage and boobs in the soup and the whole kind of thing. And I realized that if I didn't write this stuff down, then these stories would be lost, right? So I had to write them down. I so it's a story of a professional ballet dancer. That's me as a student, and then as a retired dancer. But because the book follows the trajectory of the Nutcracker. So there's the little
mm,
girl who gets the Nutcracker on stage, and then the chapter is Janine fighting the little girl who gets the Nutcracker on stage,
mm.
because that's what's going on. So I had all these stories, and I had so many stories. I realized that I could copy the flow of the Nutcracker with a story from my personal life. And that seemed like a really fun exercise. And then the more I did that, I realized, okay, where's the authentic voice here? What's the real,
Yeah.
why do I want to read this? What's really going on? We have to follow one person, the same way that we follow Clara. Even though she's not always dancing the whole time, we're still following her journey
Mm-hmm.
in the Nutcracker. So I tried to use it as a template. And then in doing that, you have, what's her journey?
Yeah.
Why is she, and we actually don't figure that out in the ballet, the Nutcracker. What is her journey? She gets a doll, it breaks, it gets fixed. Some mice come, she fights them, and then she goes to a fairy tale land where she sits and watches other people dance. It doesn't really make sense, but
It is
we
funny
love it
though,
anyway.
isn't it?
It
When you
is.
simplify some of these stories down, it's like, wow.
Yeah, it
That
makes no sense at all. Like the first act, there's like, that's a concise story, and then the rest is just kind of like a victory lap. And it evolved that way so that the dancers in real life would have something to do. It can't
hmm
just be like two or three people. So a lot of your romantic ballets have a wedding, or they have a big banquet, and they have people from other countries dancing, because that felt like something fun to do in the late 19th century. But yeah, it doesn't really hold together as like a story that we're looking for. So my story had to be, how do you how do you keep dancing when you're not dancing and you still love
Mm.
it?
Yeah, because this is, the thing, like going back to like models, right? Like how
Mm-hmm.
you, now we're getting to the stage of, oh, we can be models, no matter what, of those old rules are kind of going out the window, which I think are great.
Right.
But not I don't think the old rules are great. I'm saying it's great that we move forward and
Great. You have
progress.
new rules. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like a sports person, right? You can't keep playing football later in life. So
Right.
going into this, you already pretty much knew you're going to have another career coming in,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that's something too that I think we're learning as we, live longer. And also for women, is that we can have more than one career through our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We can change and we can adapt. We can do new things and take the lessons from the past. I mean, obviously, you have a very strong motive of integrity, no matter what you do. This is going to be that. That's a strong voice for creativity, a strong voice for art. And the arts always tell the truth. The good arts,
Mm-hmm.
the bad
Right.
arts are copycats.
Right.
That's not
Right.
art. That's
Right.
just absolute.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's lessons and
That's just churning
no,
stuff out. This kind of
that's
stuff.
just that's a yeah. It's no, they're knockoffs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, but
Absolutely.
it's true.
Yeah.
If you're not finding your voice or learning that way,
Right.
so
It's just
someone's going to send me a nasty email about this, but whatever. But having that in that is where the arts it's so important to have this authentic voice no matter what
Mm.
you do. So thinking of all of that when you were a dancer and finding your authentic dance, because I think this is something no one really kind of gets. I think
Mm.
they kind of lump, like in a band, it's like, oh, he's a bass player and that's so and so. And the band itself has to have a unique sound, but the good bands take the top qualities of each person and let them be their own. And that's the sound that's created, right? You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
like you can't, and then you, if someone passes away and you bring, like Fleetwood Mac is done, there's no
Right.
Christine
Right.
McVie, so like
Yeah.
Stevie Nicks is like, it's done
Yeah.
now, it's done its
Yeah.
course. And the
Right.
Fleetwood Mac before Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks was a completely different and really cool band, with
Right.
John Mayall and blues and all of that stuff, and Peter Green, one of the best guitarists on the planet. Sorry, shout out to Peter Green. But right, so but that was two different sounds, and it is that. But in dance, I think the audience always kind of like, and I hate to use this word, but thinks dancers have to be a robot, exactly what to do is you're told, and not a
Mhm.
robot in the you know cold
Right. But
movements.
you're obedient. You're obedient.
You're
You
obedient,
have
you're
these
doing
rules and
exactly
you've,
what so and
right.
so says, like a marching band, right?
Right. Right.
You have to
Yeah.
be precise and in this way, but it doesn't mean that you don't have your own style. And so
Right.
as a dancer, did you journal like things that you to write? Did you write this kind of down in your steps as you went, like what was good, what was, uh-oh, learn from that one,
Oh,
have another
yes.
cigarette.
Absolutely. Yeah, always so an avid journaler, often writing down about like how class went and what I needed to work on and things like that. Um, and is that what you meant that
Mm-hmm.
with that? But your anecdote about how bands were triggered, I don't know, memory of how ballet companies work. And they also evolve with who you have. If you have a director who just likes tall people, then they're going to have a bunch of tall people, and
Oh, that's funny. This is about the dance of the trees.
that's
They're short
right.
trees too, but
Again,
they're all at one
right.
age.
No
Yeah.
hedges, no
No,
hedges, just
no,
trees.
no bushes, no hedges, no apple trees, just sequoias and
Right.
redwoods. That's all you
Right.
get.
Like the
Oh
ants
boy.
from Lord of the Rings. Right, exactly. And then you have
Yeah.
some uh you have other choreographers who like just a certain kind of body type, so they'll have those kinds of people in their company. And then you have smaller companies who don't have as much core work. They'll have like 12 to 15 dancers or 12 to 20 dancers. And so they can really just go with heart choices. I like the way that person dances and I like the way that person dances. And there might not be the same kind of uniformity with body types or styles. And then that's more of a mosaic. That's more
Mm,
of a lot of voices, metaphorical voices, contributing to a bigger whole. And those were the companies that I mostly danced for when
yeah,
I
that's
was a professional, even though my heart was, I wanted to be, this sounds so silly, but I wanted to be the last swan in the last row and just like show up and do my job, like check in, punch my card, sew my shoes, and have that kind of little person in the back row of a big company. And that was not to be. And I think that's what my heart wanted because that would feel like a real job instead of
mm,
these weird jobs that I had. But the weird jobs were so much more fun.
yeah, they always are, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, that's wow. What a life, huh? And now the writing world. So that's
In the
cool.
writing world. Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, congratulations,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Go get the book, and it is 'tis the season of the Nutcracker, right? So JanineKovac.com. Again, it's called the Nutcracker Chronicles. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun. I think I'm gonna have to go play that song, like, blast it. I'm gonna blast the Nutcracker.
Which one?
Who
Which one?
blasts it? I don't have to play the whole thing. I have your I do have the CD in the car, like
I'm sure
seriously.
yeah, yeah.
So I listened
Maybe
to
the
the whole
reed
thing.
pipes or the Russian
There's some
or
crazy stuff in there though. There's some weird parts in that music that are like dark and weird.
yeah,
There's some
yeah.
there's some weird, like, yeah, kind of weird.
It's got some intensity. Yes, it does.
They didn't have nice trees in that part of it. No,
Right.
they didn't have good trees. But thank you so much, and best
Thank
wishes with the
you.
book.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for
Take
having me.
care and happy
Okay.
holidays. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.